Welcome to Discover Marshalltown. Our voice is echoing a little bit. We are out and about again today. You cannot keep us in the studio, folks. Our Discover Marshalltown on location today at Buzzed Bee Meadery. Try saying that fast about 10 times. Michelle Sponheimer is our guest. Welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I've known Michelle for actually quite a bit in her position with the city, but she has this side job, and I don't know what mead is, so
We're going to teach you.
I am excited to hear about this. So let's find out exactly what this is.
Yeah, so mead is basically, it's an alcoholic beverage that's fermented using honey. And so traditional to like a regular wine where you have grapes, we actually use honey, which is what makes it mead.
Yeah. So you have bees on location.
We do. We have 6 beehives, so not enough to get all the honey that we need for our production, but that's really what got us started. And so we started with a couple beehives, had a whole bunch of honey, and figured what better thing to do with it than make alcohol.
Right? Sounds like a logical jump to me.
Thing.
Why not?
Why not?
So I was talking to your husband, Wayne, because obviously we're on location, and we'll talk about the location a little bit here in a little bit, but he said that this kind of started out as a hobby, and now it's obviously become a source of income and a business for you. How did that leap take place? I mean, how do you go from, a lot of people do it, from hobbies to actual making this a source of income, but kind of walk us through the steps.
Yeah, well, we're not income yet. Right now, it's still a lot of cost. But we're brand new. So we've been working at it for about 2 years is when we started. And, you know, we began doing the hobby level, or what we would call home brewing, really, several years ago, probably 4 or 5, when we got the bees. And we're just kind of doing some fun stuff. And that's really Wayne's hobby. And, you know, I just tagged along and tried it out as we went. And then it got to be where we had a lot of different varieties, and it was going well, and it was kind of like, well, you know, maybe we could actually take this to the next step and do a business out of it. Didn't realize at the time necessarily what all was involved in that.
Sure.
And there is a lot of steps because the alcohol industry is very heavily regulated. And so we had a lot of process that we had to go through with the federal government, the state government, to get permits, licenses, approval of every recipe that we use, every label on our bottle, everything.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
So the labels themselves, very unique. I mean, obviously, it's not only does it say what it is, but it's a marketing tool for you.
Absolutely.
Now you have to have these printed somewhere.
Yeah. So we do. So every label, you know, I do all the design on the labels and a lot of the photography for each of the labels. And as I said, each one has to be approved by the feds as to make sure it has the Surgeon General warning and, you know, that it's not any misleading information.
Right.
We get them printed. We actually put the labels on the bottles ourselves as part of our process, as part of the production and bottling and everything.
Yeah. How many different, would I say flavors?
Yeah, I call them flavors, varieties.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
How many?
We have, right now, we have 8 available for sale.
Okay.
We have another 7 that are kind of in the works, either in production in the large tanks that are still in process. We actually have about 38 recipes approved.
Wow.
So different flavor combinations, sweetness, dryness. Just because it uses honey doesn't mean it's sweet.
Right.
And so we have a wide variety. One of the fun things about mead, as opposed to kind of traditional wines, is you can play with crazy flavors. You know, like we have a jalapeno mead, so it actually tastes a lot like a jalapeno popper or pepper jelly. So very different than what you might get in a Chardonnay or Merlot or something like that.
So does this have to ferment like a grape or?
It does.
It does. Okay.
Yep. The honey is where we get that sugar and that process. And so instead of grapes in it, mead, you know, our meads don't have any grapes in them. You can make a mead with a grape, but ours don't. And the honey ferments, turns to the alcohol. You add the different flavors, the berries, fruits, jalapenos at different stages, depending on the recipe, to get those different flavors.
Wow. And you're the only meadery in Iowa.
I believe so. Yeah, I've done a lot of Googling.
Okay.
And so I think we are the only exclusive meadery. There are some wineries that produce one or two or a few meads in their line along with other things. But from everything we can tell, we believe that we're the first and only exclusive meadery in the state that's operational right now.
That's really neat. That's
very
awesome.
exciting.
And we're sitting in your tasting room.
Our tasting room, yeah.
That is awesome. So this is your home that you've turned into a meadery.
Yeah. We actually bought this home really for this intention and purpose. It accommodated everything we need in terms of space for production, allowed the space where we could really create the tasting room environment. It just checked off all the boxes. It is out in the country, and which is nice. We enjoy it. It makes it a little bit of an experience coming out here. We still definitely consider Marshalltown to be a home. And so that's a fun thing for us to be able to be out here and have this environment to work in.
Wineries have really turned into a place to have events. Mm-hmm. You've got this viewing room and you've got this acreage, and do you foresee that happening, this becoming a destination other than just buying this?
Yeah, absolutely. We think that's definitely a possibility for us. Maybe not in the near immediate future, but as we grow, hopefully, and kind of get settled into what our market is. We've had a lot of people already that have commented about such a beautiful location. It'd be great for a wedding or this or that. It is still our home, so we want to be, aware of that we do want some privacy. Right. But we are opening it up to, people coming to us, and that's been exciting because it's a great place to share how beautiful it is.
Obviously, with a product like this, or any product, marketing is huge. Do you have an online presence? Are you starting to push that?
We do. We have a website, and we do have a Facebook page. Most of our marketing is done through Facebook right now. It's the most cost effective when you're starting out. And so that's really been great for us. We've tried to go to some various events like the Lynn Creek Art Festival. We're going to be at the Holiday Stroll. We did an event in Newton at their Arboretum. So we're trying to get out in some of those venues too to get our name out, and hit some targeted marketing that we can do. But most of it's been through social media.
Okay. Do you ship?
We have the ability to ship within the state.
Okay.
At least technically we have the license for it. We haven't started yet.
Okay.
But that is something that we'll be able to do. And eventually maybe, outside of Iowa as well. You have to have different licensing within all of those states. And so
you'd have to get 50 different...
You can't just ship to somebody.
Really?
No. Yeah, so there's some places online that work with wine shipping, and so we'll probably get connected with one of those.
Sure. So the bees themselves, and I don't know a lot about bees, but how do you harvest the honey? Do you have to put on the whole, is that even the right term? Do you have to put on like the whole beekeeper?
Yeah, I don't.
You're like, no.
No, but my husband, yes, Wayne is our beekeeper. He handles us, and that's how we got started. And we say there's like 30 to 50,000 bees in a hive, at any given time. And so you got a lot of insects that you're trying to, handle and deal with. And so the honey harvest happens usually in the late summer, so late August is when we do that. And so they basically gather their honey all summer long, and you stack your boxes as they pack away the honey, and then at the end of the summer you take it all away from them almost. You leave them a little bit for winter. They do overwinter here. And so we have an extraction is what we would call it, or a harvest. We take all the honey out and spin it around and get it all free. And we got this year out of our 6 hives, we got close to 300 pounds of honey.
Holy smokes.
Sounds like a lot, but only does 2 batches of mead for us.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you and Wayne find yourself humming Winnie the Pooh songs when you're out?
I haven't. Our son, he kind of calls himself a bee whisperer, though. So he's already got his own little suit. He hasn't gotten out there yet, but we expect next season.
So maybe this is a common question, but how do they keep during the winter time?
Yeah, so the bees are really fascinating. I've learned a lot, and I was not a big bee fan growing up, so this I've had to come around. But
okay.
You know, from what I've learned is, you know, they're the one insect that doesn't hibernate like some do. They actually kind of cluster themselves together in a ball and shiver, for lack of better words, to keep themselves warm. And they'll rotate each other out to the outer edges, move around to the honey, and so they're able to survive in, you know, our January cold.
Really?
And they can make it through. You figure they've been doing it for, you know, thousands of years on their own without us.
Yeah.
And so they're able to manage.
Do you plan to expand your bee population?
Probably not a whole lot.
Okay.
You know, we'll kind of probably go up and down a little bit just as nature, you know, sets. But we do purchase a lot of our honey. We buy from a local source. Estate Apiarist actually is our provider. He has about 150 hives that he manages. So that's another whole full-time, you know, job in and of itself to have that many hives. And we buy probably the majority of his honey.
Okay.
And so that takes a lot of honey for us to do the production that we need. So we're really fortunate to have his source. He has most of his hives in like the Bondurant area.
Okay.
So very close and local. It's, you know, the same type of honey that we have here, that a nice, really light wildflower kind of honey, clover honey you may hear referred to. So we really like that.
So under where we are now, somewhere in the basement, somewhere in the basement of the Meadery, Buzzed Bee Meadery, where we are today, that's where it's all made.
It's where the magic happens.
It's where it happens.
That's where it happens.
So, okay, walk me through how. I mean, you've got the honey. Where? I mean, what are the steps?
Right. So we have 10 80-gallon stainless steel tanks. That's what we use for our production. And through the process, you put the honey into the tank, you add water. If you're doing like a berry mead, like our aronia berries, we put in the aronia berries. With that, you let it ferment and do its job. Take it off the yeast and transfer it from one tank to another at one point in time. And then we add more honey to it if it's a sweeter mead. And so a single batch of like our traditional dry mead, that's about a 70-gallon batch usually that we make at a time. Takes about 170 pounds of honey in it.
Wow.
And so the sweeter ones that we have take even more honey and may have 200, 220 pounds of honey in them.
Wow.
So that's a lot of honey that goes into one batch. And then like a 70-gallon batch will actually give us around 320 bottles, somewhere in that range.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is just fascinating. How do you get the different colors? I mean, is that from what you add to it?
Yeah, it is. So, you know, with like this is our aronia berry. Aronia berries are also known as a chokeberry. They look a lot like a blueberry, but they're quite bitter, and you wouldn't necessarily want to just eat them, but they're a super fruit, and they're very, very high antioxidant levels. And so they give it that beautiful kind of light red color. The Sambuca sipper is our elderberry. And so it has a very dark red color that comes through to it. This is a dry mead, and so it's a lot like a dry red wine would be.
Boy, you can tell you know your stuff.
I've learned a little.
Yeah, I bet you have. How long have you guys been, well, first of all, how long have you been operating, and then how long has Buzzed Bee Meadery been open?
Yeah, so we we moved here about 2 years ago. And about a week after moving in, we incorporated the business.
Okay.
And so 2 years ago, in October, we had our 2-year anniversary of it being incorporated. It took us close to a year and a half to get through all the licensing procedures before we could really even start our production and get bottling going and things like that. We weren't able to make any of the meads for commercial production until all those approvals were done.
Okay.
And so we just opened the tasting room, and then we had renovations going on in the tasting room. We opened the tasting room Labor Day weekend of this year, so just a little over 2 months ago.
Awesome. We're going to take a commercial break. We're visiting with Michelle Sponheimer from Buzzed Bee Meadery. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back to Discover Marshalltown. Kyle Martin hosting with Michelle Sponheimer from Buzz Bee Meadery. And something that we didn't talk about, Michelle, exactly where are you located at? We're out in the country. We need to set our GPS. Yeah. But where exactly are you?
Yeah, so we are rural Marshall County. We're south of Melbourne. So we're actually right on the county line between Marshall and Jasper, in between Melbourne and Baxter, or Marshalltown and Newton, if you kind of think about the next bigger cities.
Right.
So we're, just about 25 minutes out of Marshalltown. It's, really still quite close in Marshall County. So it's kind of exciting. We're Marshall County's first winery. We're technically a winery by all the licensing, and then the state's first meadery. So
awesome. Let's talk about pricing of the different wines here. Some of them are different than the others.
Yeah, they range from $16 a bottle to $20 a bottle. Basically, we run that if it's got a single ingredient or an extra level of honey for like our traditional semi-sweet, then it's going to be an $18 range. If it's got a sweeter made to it and those ingredients, like our lemon, our Sweet Bee lemon is our most popular. That one's a $20 bottle. Well worth it.
Well worth it.
Well worth it.
Well, you can tell that she loves this stuff. As far as food recommendation, because people love wine with like fish and chicken, and you always get recommendations like, what kind of wine should I have with this chicken? I mean, you can pair these with...
You can pair them with anything.
Really?
You really can.
Okay.
I mean, it is a lot like, it's all depends on personal taste. I'll tell you what we really like. One of the things is our chocolate stinger. It's a dark chocolate. And so it's not a really sweet, syrupy kind of chocolate, but it pairs really well with a sweet dessert. And so we like it with s'mores around the campfire.
Well, there you go.
So nothing real fancy, but, it definitely kind of fits. But you can do our traditional dry, goes very well as like a normal dry white wine that you might have with a white meat or something, and then our sambuca sipper, the elderberry, similar to a red wine that you might pair with a red mead dish or something. So we also cook with the meads as well. Do a lot of cooking with them, just like you would any recipe that you might use a wine to cook with. You can substitute a mead. I made cupcakes last weekend. A recommendation, somebody said you can put wine in a cake mix. I'm like, who knew that?
Who knew that?
They turned out great.
I never would have guessed that.
It's like every cupcake should have wine in it.
At the meadery here, if we were to come here, do we need to make an appointment? Or, I mean, you've got, this is a tasting room, obviously. How?
It is. We're open Thursday evenings right now from 4 to 7 p.m. And then we're open on Saturdays from 12 to 5. So those are open hours. You don't need an appointment. Just show up. We're here. We're ready. You get to taste the product. Since it's new and a lot of people are not familiar with mead, we want them to taste it and know what it is to make sure that it's something they're going to enjoy before they buy a bottle. So that's free for you to come and do a tasting. And then we are here by appointment. Since it is our home, we're able to be here. So if those times don't meet your schedule, you can give us a call. We also do private events. Like this weekend, we have a group coming out Saturday evening, and they're going to have just kind of a social. We'll do a tasting with all of them. And they have a time to visit and learn, and hopefully buy a couple bottles on their way. Well,
that's kind of the idea, right? Yeah, it's like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
So you can come out and you can try all of them.
Yeah. We do tastings of all of them. Or if you really like sweet stuff, we have some people that just want to try the sweeter ones or just try the dry. Yeah. We usually challenge people to try all of them if they're feeling adventurous because it's so different. So we have people who say, well, I'm not a wine drinker. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, give it a shot because it might surprise you.
Yeah. So the history of mead, I am going to put you on that. Maybe we should get Wayne. How, we obviously hear about grapes going probably back to biblical times and before making wine. But I mean, how did the whole...
Mead is actually the oldest.
Really?
Yes, fermented beverage. And so it was a time of, the medieval times we hear about, and you hear about Vikings and Renaissance times and some of those cultures where you read some of the old, literature and they talk about mead. And, newly you're watching Game of Thrones and things like that, and they're talking about mead. And so it's an ancient beverage that really kind of maybe fell out of popularity for a period of time because bees weren't as easy to harvest, the honey, as grapes were.
Right.
And so grapes became more affordable, easier to manage as a crop. And so that became kind of the push in that industry to have that. And so mead kind of fell out. It's now one of the fastest growing alcohols within the alcohol industry. Still a very small percentage, meaderies are, but it grew about 2 years ago like 130%. So it's growing rapidly for being a small, kind of like the cider industry or the craft brew movement. You know, we see those. I think mead is kind of that next big thing.
Okay. Let's talk about the label themselves, the back of the label, they're numbered.
Yeah, they are.
Talk about that, because this one is batch number 12. Yeah. Bottle number 219 of 227.
Right. Why the numbering?
Yeah, why the numbering?
Yeah, so every batch, the batch number that you referenced, that means that is the 12th batch of mead of any flavor that we have made commercially. So that's where the batch number comes from. The bottle number means that of that batch, we got, how many was it? 227 bottles.
Okay.
And so we actually hand label each one of them, hand write on them what number bottle that is. And so that allows us to kind of keep track. It gives that artisan craft feel to that, because it is a small batch. It's a very unique thing in that aspect. And should something, you always hope that you don't have a problem.
Right. But you could go back to that.
We could go back to that if we needed to, and refer back to find out, well, what happened with that?
Yeah, and it's a collector's item.
And exactly.
It is, because you know exactly. Because you know exactly what that is. So real quick here, where do you get your bottles from?
Well, we order our bottles through a supplier that comes out of Des Moines.
Okay.
And for all the bottles, and the corks that we use are called Zorks. And so they're a little bit different. So you think of a traditional cork, where you need the corkscrew and you're trying to get that thing out of there, and it always breaks apart and falls in the bottle.
This one kind of wraps around.
It wraps around just like your milk ring, and pops off. So you don't need any kind of opener. So you can take it anywhere, and it doesn't matter. And so we really like that, and a lot of meaderies are using the Zork. I think it's a little different. Mead's a little different. It's a nice fit, really so we're going with that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to get some footage of Buzzed Bee Meadery, and we're going to walk around here a little bit. So we're going to take a break. We're going to step away from the tasting room.
Finished up all my Christmas shopping. Hey!
Don't let this happen to you. Don't set yourself up to be victimized. You have to be mindful during the holiday season that there's folks out there wanting to take advantage of the situation. There's plenty of shoppers around, there's lots of money, there's lots of presents and valuables floating around that aren't necessarily this abundant throughout the year. Parking your vehicles at nighttime, make sure you're in well-lit areas. Locking your doors when you go into the stores. While you're in the store shopping, make sure that you pay attention to the people around you. Don't be flashing currency and credit cards. Don't carry these things loosely. So many times, if you go around stores, you see ladies that leave their pocketbooks in shopping carts or in bags unattended. This is not what you want to do. Make sure that when you take your presents to the car, you have your keys available in your hands. And if you have a newer model vehicle, keep your finger close to the panic button. That way, if a situation arises where you're confronted by a suspect, you can hit the panic button to cause a distress signal that other people can see to alert them that something's going on. Look around your vehicle as you approach it. Make sure that you put your packages and any kind of valuable items in a locked container, preferably your trunk, where it's not visible. You have to be extra alert this time of year because there's people watching you that have not so good intentions in mind. And ladies, remember, the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office also offers a women's self-defense course. It's called RAD. We encourage you to check it out. It'll help you with situational awareness and physical protective measures, especially this holiday season.
I'm John Ingram, and it is an honor to serve as your sheriff. The mission and priority at the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office is to serve and protect you, the citizens of this fine county. But we can't do it alone. This holiday season, please take every precaution to protect yourself from becoming a victim of crime. Sadly, this time of year, criminals prey on those who are distracted by the hustle and bustle of the season. causing the holiday to be anything but joyous. But these few tips can deter criminal activity and keep your families and your valuables safe and secure. I, along with the men and women of the Brunswick County Sheriff's Office, wish you and your families a safe and happy holiday season.
So Wayne, when you come out here, typically, I mean, we're not protected right now, which you think is really funny. I'm kind of freaking out, although I don't have any bee allergies that I know of. Yeah. Do you typically wear the...
Yeah, I mean, you can typically get fairly close to them, but when you start actually opening up the hives and dealing with them in that way, you definitely want to have a smoker with to kind of calm them down and distract them a little bit. And then, of course, wearing the veil helps quite a bit. Yeah,
the smoker. I've heard about the smoke. It actually, it calms them. It kind of,
it disorients them, and they can send signals to each other, and it kind of slows that down, so it gives you a little bit of extra time to work with them.
You are the bee whisperer. I heard this. Michelle called you the bee whisperer.
Actually, I believe she called my son the bee whisperer.
Oh, she did?
He's self-proclaimed. He likes to get up close, and we sit and watch him and kind of see him come to and from the hive.
So this was your idea, really. I mean, it was a hobby. Yeah. And Michelle, just said, yeah, okay, that sounds good.
I think she was mainly looking for me to finally justify one of my hobbies, because I've had a lot of hobbies over the years, and I tend to go overboard. So she's been pretty tolerant of me.
Harvesting bees is not going overboard. No. But great. All right. Well, why don't we move inside?
Great. This is our labeling machine, and so we
that's some serious
put a
audio
bottle
equipment.
and that's one of his other hobbies. This is just a portion of his
audio equipment.
Of audio equipment. Yeah. So we have the labeler, and we'll roll the labels on, so they just come out and peel off like a sticker.
Describe where we are right now, either Wayne or Michelle.
Well, we're in our basement, and this is our fermentation room. This is where we ferment. This is the first phase, and then we have a bottling area right along the edge, and we label it and store it in the other room. But this is where I take care of all the fermentation and management of it before we bottle it.
And each one of these large vats is a different flavor.
Yep, it's a different variety flavor. They're all different. They're variable capacity tanks. They've got lids that can move up and down depending on the batch size. And so I can just kind of go through each step and transfer them to a different one and do a different part of the process.
Does it take, they're down here for a while.
Mm-hmm, yeah, 4 months at a minimum.
Yeah, I mean, our meads, depending on the strength and the flavoring and different stuff that we do to them, it could take anywhere from 4 months up to a year if it's a really high alcohol mead.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So like this one here, that's a chocolate coffee. And so it's going to have chocolate, coffee, it uses buckwheat honey, and it's a little bit higher alcohol. And so this is a smaller batch, it's only about 20 gallons, but we've had it going for several months now.
And some will age with oak and kind of blend some flavors in. We test each batch at each different step, and so we actually know where it's at, and we won't bottle it until we're 100% satisfied with where it's at.
Okay. And you guys are the official taste testers?
Yep.
Along with my mom.
Along with your mom?
Yeah. And actually we have no problem getting extra tasters. If we want to ask some friends, we've always had very good luck getting some friends over.
I bet you have. Well, guys, thank you so much
for
having us out. This has been a wonderful tour, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
This has been Kyle Martin for Discover Marshalltown. We thank Michelle and Wayne Sponheimer at Buzz Bee Meadery in Melbourne, and tune in next time.